You know, Dan Crenshaw's someone that at one point I really liked Dan Crenshaw, and then I really disliked Dan Crenshaw. Dan has a history of turning his back on the SEAL community. He has a history of turning his back on the people that voted for him, and he has become pretty synonymous with the typical I'm going to tell you one thing and then do whatever the hell I want once I'm elected type of politician. I didn't think that that included sending threats to podcasters, inadvertent threats, well, not inadvertent, but disguised threats, I should say, to podcasters, where he tells them that his boys at SEAL Team 6 have been contacting him about a podcaster. I don't think that's appropriate action from a congressman, but when you're bought and paid for by the deep state and you can do whatever the hell you want, I guess it's okay to threaten people with pretty much the greatest military fighting force on the planet. For those of you that don't know, SEAL Team 6 or Develop Group or Development Group or Dev Gru or there's a billion names for SEAL Team 6. They are the top of the line, tip of the spear, the best of the best. They are developing and training new tactics to fight new threats all day, every day. All their job is to do war at the highest level, at the most extreme, day in and day out. And Dan Crenshaw essentially found it necessary to tell a podcaster, I have boys at Team 6, and they don't like what you're saying about me. Essentially saying, you might want to shut the fuck up because I got some buddies, and they know a thing or two, and they're not fans of you. Essentially, it's like if your brother's a boxer, and you're like, you might not want to fuck with me because my brother's a kickboxer, and he'll come beat your ass. Essentially, taking the Netanyahu response. I'm going to start shit because I have someone who will cover my ass. Um, so the podcaster in question here is Sean Ryan. Now, for those of you that don't know, Sean Ryan was also a Navy SEAL. Did I tell you about the part that Dan Crenshaw was a SEAL? Okay, well, if I did, Dan Crenshaw was a SEAL. He got injured in the line of duty, and then he became a politician. Now, at first, Dan was very, I'm pro 2A. I would never support any legislation that can take your guns away. I'm hanging out with these Black Rifle Coffee dudes, and then like Black Rifle Coffee cut ties with him really quickly, which I think was like after he got elected, they kind of were like, yikes, and like they quit like involving him. I don't think he's like persona non grata with them, but like he was in with them for like a couple of weeks, and then like they backed way the hell off. I don't know if he's still like in the group or if he's like just like, yeah, no, we're just gonna part ways with you. But yeah, I've seen a lot of people distance from Dan Crenshaw. Another person Dan Crenshaw has turned his back on, aside from his constituents, who after telling them that I would never vote for legislation to take your guns away, he immediately voted for red flag laws. Like it was like one of the first things he did was vote in favor of red flag laws. Um, After that, he turned his back on Eddie Gallagher, a Navy SEAL who was accused of murder. He was wrongly accused of murder. Eddie Gallagher reached out to Dan Crenshaw to get some help because he was in fucking Guantanamo Bay, didn't really have access to a lot of people. Eddie Gallagher spent a ton of time in prison, and if you want to hear Eddie's story, it's on the Sean Ryan show, and it's one of those stories that would really just piss you off. The way the government drug his family out of his house at gunpoint, like his kids were in their pajamas, sprawled out on the lawn at gunpoint in the front yard. Like this whole thing was absurd. The way they treated Eddie Gallagher and his family. Trump eventually pardoned Eddie, so I mean, at least that win exists. I digress. That's not this story. Eddie tried to approach Dan at an event to kind of be like, hey, I reached out to you, like you never got back to me, dude. What the hell? Like we're team guys. We're both SEALs. Like you didn't help me. That wasn't cool. Because when you're in a community like that, even like a group of guys that goes off roading. If I see one of the guys I go off roading with, and I'm out at an event, I'm gonna be like, "Hey, that's John. That's my wheeling buddy. What's up, John?" And with the special operations community, the SEAL teams, the Green Berets, Army Rangers, all that kind of stuff, it's the same thing. They're not gonna turn their back to you out in public and be like, I'm not gonna associate with this person while I'm around my rich friends. It's like, no, that's my boy. That dude saved my life one time. Like we're homies. Like that dude's always here. Like, but Dan, no, no, Dan's too good for Eddie because Eddie isn't. Eddie doesn't make Dan look good right now. Eddie is someone who's been accused of murder. Eddie has war crimes tied to his name. When you look up Eddie Gallagher, you find out about the alleged war crimes. So Dan Crenshaw, being the honorable man that he is, ignored him and walked away. There's another Navy SEAL whose name I forget that reached out to Congressman Crenshaw and said, "Hey Dan, I'm writing a book. I'm kind of getting fucked here. I know you're writing a book. Can you help me out?" Both SEALs, and Dan basically told him, "Go fuck yourself. I'm gonna get mine. You got to figure it out." Now, this is just three stories I've heard about our wonderful Texas representative Dan Crenshaw, but now I've heard another story. Sean Ryan has received threats from Dan Crenshaw that Dan Crenshaw's team was going to sue him if he didn't take down certain clips. And for just me standing here saying, Sean, don't. Like, I know your stance is pretty much fuck you, you're not going to bully me, but hold on to that stance because the rest of us aren't in a position to have that stance. The rest of us don't have the ability to have that stance. Most of us couldn't afford to go to legal war with a congressman. So we need you to make that point. We need you to hammer that nail home that no, you work for me. You don't get to tell me what to do. So keep doing what you're doing, Sean. We're going to play Sean's response to all this and the clips in question in just a second. But, Sean has decided that he's going to fight this to the end, which 100%, I love it. I want to see more of it. I hope Sean doubles down and doubles down and doubles down. I mean, if anyone has the money to fight this fight, it's Sean Ryan. If anyone has the connections to fight this fight, it's Sean Ryan. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Knocked my camera loose. Oh no. Technical difficulties. Hold on. There we go. Knocked my camera loose. My bad. If anyone has the ability to fight this, it is Sean Ryan. Sean Ryan is a former Navy SEAL, former CIA guy. He's got connections. He's got people that can help him with this. He's got the ability to get the best lawyers for defamation, slander, whatever it may be. Sean's the guy to have on our team here. And I am tired of these politicians and their insider trading, and they just do whatever the hell they want. And now we've got them threatening people with SEAL Team 6. So how many other people have these politicians threatened with SEAL Team 6? Let's hear what Sean has to say about this. And these are comments. At first, he didn't mention Crenshaw's name. And then in a podcast with another SEAL, he mentioned Crenshaw's name and he mentioned that Dan Crenshaw sent him a rather threatening message on Instagram or Twitter or something like that. You'll see it. So basically, if you don't know what insider trading is, basically, these people in Congress get information on things that are going to happen, right? So they know, okay, we're going to pass this law, which is going to affect, we'll just say, oil prices in this way. So we're going to sell all our stock in the oil companies because the oil companies are going to tank if we do this. Or inversely, we're going to pass this law. It's going to be great for the oil companies. So we're going to buy extra stock in these oil companies before this law passes. That's called insider trading. That's called illegal. You're not allowed to insider trade. But it seems that that only applies to the plebeians like you and I. If you're in Congress, for example, it's completely okay. If you're Nancy Pelosi, it's completely okay. But if you're the peasant, you or I, well, no, you can't insider trade. If you have knowledge of something and you use your knowledge to invest in an intelligent way, that's insider trading. You're going to go to prison. Now, it's hard to prove because how do you know what I knew? I just got lucky. I just happened to buy stock in Exxon before that bill passed, and I don't know. That's the hard part about it, is you can't prove that they knew what was going to happen because they never know the outcome of the bill. So it's like, yeah, you can say they're insider trading until you're blue in the face, but you can never prove it. But we know they're doing it. We just have no legal proof. I mean, they're doing it. Look at the bill. Look at what would have resulted from the bill. Look at where they bought stocks. It's really easy to say, yes, I knew they insider traded. For some reason we don't. Let me ask you this. You think right before Dan Crenshaw voted for red flag laws, do you think maybe Dan Crenshaw might have bought a bunch of stock in gun companies, anticipating that when red flag laws got passed, people might go out and surge the market a little bit and buy some guns that they were going to stash somewhere, squirrel away, so that if they ever got red flagged, they didn't lose all their guns? I think that might have happened. I'm not saying it did. I'm just asking the question. Is it possible that that happened? Of course it's possible. It's what any logical person would do. If you live in a state where red flag laws are a thing, they can come to your home, they can take your guns away by force. Yeah, of course, the guns I have at home are going to be the shitty ones, and I'm going to have the nice ones squirreled away somewhere for fucking when the sky falls. I'm going to have my best guns that I have set up for the end of days squirreled off somewhere. Because, yeah, red flag me. Take my $300 Taurus. I don't give a shit because my $3,500 worth of guns and kit is stored somewhere else that you don't know. It's stored in a remote location. Like, I'm not saying that that's what I would do. I'm not saying that's what I do. You know, if I were going to do it, I would probably do it the other way around. And I would just like stash a PSA, like AR with a cheap LPVO somewhere. Just be like, that's for the end of the world if red flag laws were a thing. But red flag laws aren't a thing in Ohio. Ohio doesn't believe in taking your fucking rights for no reason. But in the state of Texas, Dan Crenshaw voted for red flag laws. And all red flag laws have done historically is get people murdered, by the way. But I wonder, did someone come to him and say, hey, you should vote this way and I'll make a nice donation to you? Did he decide to vote this way and then buy stock in Colt? We'll never know. Yeah, they're all hypocrites. How about this? You enter Congress and you're not allowed to trade stocks until you leave Congress. How about that? Solves the problem. How about instead of some of my boys at six told me about your indirect swipe at me? Hey, I heard from the community. Some guys in the community were saying that you might have some uh, you might have some wrong ideas about what's going on here. I just want to clear the air. How about that? Because I guarantee you, if Dan would have said, "Hey, Sean, like you can always get a hold of me to clear these things up," like some of the guys in in the SEAL community were like telling me about how you made some comments about how I was making money. I would love to clear this up. Like I would love to come on the show and clear this up. I'll speak to you privately. I'll speak to you publicly. Like let's clear this up. No, no. Instead, he's like, my boys at six told me about your indirect swipe at me. Like you're immediately falling back and playing the victim card. Like, how dare you take shots at me? Well, it's easy to take shots at you, Dan. You're a fucking spineless coward. You're a piece of dog shit who's turned your back on your SEAL community time and time again. You've turned your back on your friends. You've turned your back on people you've worked with. You've turned your back on your constituents. You're a fucking asshole. And then on top of that, you threatened to murder Tucker Carlson. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm pretty sure I made a video on that. I'm pretty sure I made a video covering that when he said that. This isn't the first time I've called Dan Crenshaw out, and unfortunately, I don't have a big enough platform for Dan Crenshaw to see it. But if Dan Crenshaw does happen to see this, I got one message for you, Dan. You're a scumbag. You're a piece of shit. You do not represent America, and I do not believe you're a good representation of the Navy or the SEAL teams. If you had any type of a spine left, you would retire. You would give up. You would say, I've made enough money. I'm done. I took my ill gotten gains and disappeared. But instead, I don't think you're going to. I think you're going to keep riding this train until the fucking tracks run out. You're going to keep doing this until people stop electing you because you're a power hungry piece of shit. That's all I have to say. Now, just for full disclosure, Sean was never a six guy. I think he was in SEAL Team 3, um, which the numbers just correlate to what coast you're on, really. Aside from six, six is the only one, from my understanding. I might be getting this wrong. I'm not in the Navy. I'm not a SEAL. I'm none of that. I just have a autistic fixation with like military history and things of that nature. Um, Basically, I think all the even numbers are on one coast, all the odd numbers are on another coast. SEAL Team 6 being the exemption, being development group, they're the guys that they learn how to do tip of the spear warfare as quickly and as accurately as possible. They're the guys working on new room clearing tactics. They're the guys working on new tactics involving drones. They're working on new weapons involving drones. Like these guys are not only are they deploying and trying these things, but when they're not deploying, they are training and coming up with new tactics and trying new things on the flat range and trying new things in the shoot house. I mean, these guys are the tip of the spear. Like I can't emphasize enough how dangerous these people are. Like they're not idiots saying, well, maybe if we all run into the room and scream ooga booga booga, they'll all throw their guns down and they'll give up. No, these guys are testing new flashbangs, testing new throwable weapons to disorient people when they're entering a room, testing new ways just to fuck with people as they're clearing a room. Like there was one guy, I don't know if he was a SEAL team, if he was a SEAL or not, but there was one dude who was on a podcast, or he was a friend of someone who was on a podcast, and he would throw a rubber ducky into rooms before he would clear them. That's where the fat electrician got quack bang out. Is they would throw rubber ducks into the room that they were clearing, and all the terrorists would scatter, thinking it was a grenade or whatever. And when they heard everyone scatter, they would go in and clear the room, and everyone would pretty much give up because they're like, "What the fuck did they throw in here?" No one wanted to fight because they didn't know what was in there. Psychological shit. I mean, I'm sure SEAL Team 6 works on stuff like that as well. Like, these guys are, they are the tip of the spear. I can't emphasize that enough. This was the other SEAL I was talking about. I would be more worried about guys, boys from six, coming to do more than beat me up. I don't think that, I think you could get just about anyone to do that. I think that they might be coming to do a little bit more nefarious things. So basically, when you write a book, when you're a special operations guy of any sort, be it a Green Beret, an Army Ranger, Recon Marine, Navy SEAL, whatever, you're a special operations guy. You have top secret security clearance. This would even apply to someone like my brother, who was a security forces officer and had top secret security clearance. Not like officer in rank, but like he was a police officer in the Air Force, which is called security forces. If my brother were to write a book about his experiences in security forces with the Air Force, he would have to submit his book to the Air Force, who would then review it, and then they would say, hey, this is classified. It needs to be either heavily redacted or just taken out completely. Uh, this is okay. This is not okay. You can't talk about this because it's top secret. Whatever. Like you can't be putting this information out because it's a danger. It's a threat to our security. Whatever it is. It's exposing tactics, techniques, and procedures. Whatever. Anyone who is in the military has to do this. I mean, I don't know about like just like your run of the mill grunt, like you're just regular old army guy or whatever. I would assume yes, you would have to just to make sure that you're not exposing someone. And I don't mean that they would do it on purpose. I don't mean that they would write about how to, I don't know, just for argument's sake, we'll say they're writing about how to react to an ambush, and we'll say that's top secret. So, he's in his book and he's saying, oh, yeah, so we reacted to this ambush by doing XYZ, which is the way we're taught to handle an ambush. Well, now anyone can pick that book up and find out how Navy SEALs handle an ambush. So they can then figure out what uniforms Navy SEALs wear. They can figure out what insignias, what patches, whatever Navy SEALs wear. And then when they ambush them, they're a step ahead because they know, okay, those guys are going to peel left and try to flank around. I don't know if that's the. I mean, that is a way to react to an ambush, but I doubt that's the way Navy SEALs react to an ambush. They probably have a lot better ways to do it. Um, but I digress. So the point is, you have to review. You have to have your book reviewed to make sure that there's no sensitive information, or maybe you have a friend. We'll just call him Lieutenant Johnson. Maybe Lieutenant Johnson is still active duty and he's deploying on top secret undercover missions. Well, you can't put Lieutenant Johnson's name out there because if they find out, or maybe Lieutenant Johnson's out there, but he's using an alias of Frank. And so you say, Lieutenant Johnson, who was under the alias of Frank, did XYZ, and then we went and backed him up. Well, you can't put that out there because if the bad guys get a hold of that book and they find out Lieutenant Johnson is using the alias of Frank, now they're going to kill Lieutenant Johnson. It's just a matter of like covering everyone's ass and making sure like, no, there's nothing top secret here. There's nothing. And Dan's just like, yeah, I don't care. I'm just going to put it out. Fuck them. So he had this guy had to pay the government to go through the fucking do it the right way. And Dan Crenshaw just gets to publish his book and do whatever the fuck he wants. I am so sick of Dan Crenshaw. There you have it, folks. There you have it. There you have it. Dan Crenshaw is the biggest piece of shit. He has turned his back time and time again on America, on his constituents, on the SEAL teams, on other service members. Dan Crenshaw will never stop turning his back on you. Dan Crenshaw is essentially the husband that comes home drunk and beats his wife and then wakes up in the morning and says, I'm sorry, honey, I won't ever do it again. And then he does it again the next weekend. And then he says, I'm sorry, honey, I won't do it again. And he does it again the next weekend. Dan Crenshaw is not good for America. Dan Crenshaw is the antithesis of what a representation, especially of something as high valued and as high honored as the SEAL teams, right? Like, not just any guy goes and becomes a Navy SEAL. There is a level of mental fortitude and toughness that goes into being a SEAL. There is a level of physical toughness that goes into being a Navy SEAL. You're not just picking any guy off the street and saying, yeah, you could be a Navy SEAL. It's highly unlikely. Also, it's highly unlikely. There's been pro athletes that have washed out of buds. They can't make it through SEAL training. There are guys that can perform at the highest levels, but they don't have the mental toughness to be cold. And they say, I'm going home. Or they don't have the mental toughness to deal with the chafing for a week. And they're like, no, I'm out. I'm not doing this. One person that comes to mind is Donut Operator. Donut was, and I would consider Donut to be a tough guy. I mean, he was a cop for a long time. He's into fighting and shit. He's working out like crazy. And he went into buds thinking, yeah, I can do this. And he got hurt real bad. And he was like, fuck this. I want to go play Skyrim and hang out with my kid. This isn't it. And I'm not saying that he's a weak person. That's not what I'm saying by any means. Anyone who signs up to go to buds is a tough guy. Like 99% of those guys they're tough from the start. They're tough. Even Mr. Ballin was a Navy SEAL. And I mean, yeah, he made it, but only just. The reason he made it was because he had that toughness buried deep down. And I don't mean like physically, like, yeah, he could bench 350 with one arm. No, that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about that toughness. Just that I'm not gonna quit. You're gonna kill me before I quit. That's what I mean when I say toughness. And he had that toughness to be like, I don't care how many times I fail pool comp. I'm going to keep doing it until I get to my last try. And if I don't get it, I'm going to die trying to get it. And finally, he did it. And he got, like, he's a tough dude. He has that intestinal fortitude to do the things that he sets his mind to. And at one point, Dan Crenshaw did. At one point, of course, I will give Dan Crenshaw all the respect and honor in the world for joining the military, serving our country, and getting injured in the line of duty. I mean, the dude lost his eye fighting in the Middle East for our country. And I respected that. For a long time, I respected that. For a long time, people said, Dan Crenshaw's a piece of shit. And I said, no, you're a fucking asshole. You're a coward. You're talking shit on our wounded warfighters. This dude came home from fighting a war at, if not the highest level, near the highest level. And you're talking shit on this guy. What kind of person are you? And now, after Dan spent a couple years showing his true colors, I still don't agree with the guy that said that Dan Crenshaw deserved to be blown up and that he hopes he gets his face fucked by a Taliban fighter or whatever the hell he said. I don't agree with that person. I still think that person's wrong, but I don't disagree with a lot of these people that said, hey, Dan's a bad person. Dan's a scumbag. He's a shitty person. He's not someone we should be. He's not someone we should be putting on a pedestal here. This dude is not who he says he is. For a long time, I defended it, and I said, no, these people are wrong. They're upset. They don't want to see good people in Congress, and now, yeah, he really showed who he is. So, I guess if you live in Texas, don't vote for fucking Dan Crenshaw. Also, if you live in Texas, if you are in the proper district, remember, vote Brandon for Congress. We want to see the AK guy in Congress. I want to see him tear it the fuck down. I want to see him destroy the ATF, destroy the NFA, destroy it all. Tear it all the way down. But that's all I got for you. I really wanted to touch on this. I honestly didn't plan on this being on an almost 40-minute video. I planned on this being like 15, 20 minutes at best. But Dan Crenshaw is one of those people that just like really pisses me off. I don't know what's going on up here. Just ignore it, please. It's like can't get to do what I want to do ever. It's this in between length. When it gets a little bit longer, it'll work with me. But like right now, it's just whatever. So just deal with it. But yeah, I just Dan Crenshaw's a piece of shit. That's the moral of the story. I get real heated when people bring up Dan Crenshaw, and the crazy part is the fact that Sean Ryan is like, does Dan Crenshaw have people like gunning for me now? Like, do I have to watch who I invite on my show? Because I don't know, but I would assume, Sean started this show in his attic. If I had Dan Crenshaw telling me, I've got boys at 6 and they don't like how you're talking about me, I wouldn't invite anyone from SEAL Team 6 to my home. I really wouldn't. I would not interview a single person from 6. That's where, Sean has kids. Sean has a wife and kids at home. I wouldn't be inviting you to come into my attic and do my podcast in my attic if I think you have ill will towards myself or my family. The hell no. Hell no. I'm not doing that. I'm not inviting you in. Get out of here. And I don't know, he's got a new studio. I don't know if that means he has a new house separate from the studio or if he just moved homes and he has a new studio on his property where his house is. But I mean, you got to think, this dude is talking to almost all the time. He is talking to people who have gone to fight wars at a high level. Sean Ryan interviews people like Mike Glover, who was the tip of the spear. Evan Hafer, who was a Green Beret, again, the tip of the spear. I don't know that Sean's actually ever interviewed Evan. I don't think he has, but I digress. People like these people, right? People like Nicholas Irving, the Reaper, the notorious, the black dude that was the sniper for I think he was an Army sniper, or it might have been a Marine sniper. I forget. But I mean, the point is, Sean invites the most dangerous men alive to his property to talk about how they're the most dangerous men alive. I mean, that is, and that's not the only people he interviews. I'm not saying that everyone he interviews is just a commie slaying badass. Like, I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, she's in the reserves or the National Guard or something, I think. And I mean, yeah, badass. I don't think women have a place there, but that's a conversation for another day. I think Tulsi Gabbard was in the National Guard or something. Hold on, I gotta fact check that. If I can spell. TUL. She was in the Hawaii National Guard and then the U.S. Army Reserve. So I was right on both of those, actually. Yeah, so Tulsi Gabbard was in the National Guard in Hawaii and then um, the Army Reserves. Even Tulsi Gabbard has an understanding of warfighting. Even Tulsi Gabbard is able to, you know, pick up a gun and use it. As you could see from the background of Sean's studio, there's guns in there. I mean, I would hope that Sean is carrying it just in the event that things do go sideways with a guest. But like, you never know what could happen. You know what I mean? Like, it takes one round, and it doesn't even have to be where they wanted it. I mean, it takes one guy coming in with one round, and like he could end it all right there. I mean, it doesn't have to be and especially if it's like a SEAL Team 6 guy or a former CIA guy, or these are people that have thought about how to do these things. How would I kill someone if I know they have guns and I know what kind of guns they have? How would I kill them with not being able to bring my own gun? Well, I'm going to use theirs. How would I do that? Well, I'm going to have to find a magazine, and I'm going to have to smuggle a couple rounds in, maybe in the bottom of my shoe. And I can load that magazine, and then as long as I can find that weapon and get to it before they can stop me, we'll be all right. I just like, yeah, I just like, I don't know, man. I think Dan is a real piece of shit for this. I really do. But, that's all I got. I'll end it there. There's no need in hearing me babble about nothing. So,